First one to point out to you, if you could have a look on your tables, you may see one of these. Tech City News. It's a digital content. This is their first paper edition. So they've kind of created a brand in a digital context and then gone traditional thereafter. And the man behind it is Alex Wood, who's the editor, and he's going to come join us now. So over to Alex. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to this session on hacking, prototyping, and smart systems. I'm Alex Wood, and it's a real pleasure to be here at Rework this morning. As has been mentioned, I'm the editor of Tech City News. We started out in digital just 11 months ago, and I'm thrilled to be able to share with all of you today a copy of our first ever print magazine, which has been a really interesting journey for us because I think lots of things that we talk about today are going to be about the latest technology, but I don't know about any of you in this room, but I personally am drowning in a sea of email, of tweets, and deluge of information that's happening in our world. And so when I sat down with our editorial team, we kind of looked at each other and we thought, you know what, print is not dead. Print has a place in this world, and what print allows us to do is to take a moment for ourselves, take a step back, have a cup of tea, and really think about what's happening in the world. So the magazine in front of you is very much framed on the idea of what's happened in the last quarter and what's happening in the next quarter. So it's going to be a quarterly publication, and there's one feature which I might want to draw your attention to. One of my writers filed a report from Santander in Spain, where the local government has partnered with Telefonica to turn an entire town into a smart city. But enough about me. Today we have 4 fantastic speakers, and we're going to be focusing on the current smart city and Internet of Things trends, and we'll be taking it by a case-by-case study. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker today, who is Alicia Asin. And Alicia is the CEO and co-founder of Libelium, a Spanish wireless sensor hardware provider, and the creator of a really quite fascinating open-source sensor platform for the Internet of Things. Please put your hands together for Alicia Asin.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I want to start with this picture because I think that this is what we expect the city, the future look like. And I need to explain you first that I'm going to be speaking from a technical point of view. So just a little bit of background of Libelium. We are basically sensor providers, and we develop a sensor platform that basically connects any kind of sensor using any communication protocol to any information system. Just to give you a little bit of perspective. So those are the huge numbers about smart cities, and the question is, when is it going to happen? We've been discussing in our tables before about all the challenges and all the things. So I'm going to be presenting 3 different perspectives. How can we do smart cities from the public sector promoting that? How can we have the public sector and the citizens cooperating together? And the last one, how can we have activists in the city doing that for themselves? So the first example is a city, and it's the city of Santander, by the way, with our sensors for detecting free parking spots. So not to mention that this is very, very aggressive for a city. You really need to cut streets. You really need to annoy the neighbors, make noise, and make a lot of problems to the neighbors before giving them the solution. So this is something to take into account. But despite all these technical challenges of calibration, installation, and everything, that's absolutely nothing compared to the other things, which are coordination inside municipalities, and more important, citizens, because this is the time where the citizens are more educated than ever, and the citizens that are more critical than ever. So you better have a nice answer, an accurate one, for those questions like, what are you doing with my taxes? Is this safe? Is this technology really improving my quality life? Or you're going to have a fire on Twitter, on Facebook, and all the internet right there. So what happens when the public sector is trying to cooperate with the citizens? I think that that's called open data. And it means making the data available, accessible, and you can do with it whatever you want, providing that you are not altering it. So in the District of Columbia, the police department decided to publish the crime data, which is, well, just a table. This is open data, but it's not very useful because it doesn't have any context and it doesn't have any way to access to that in an easy way. So someone thought that putting this data into a map would be much more easier and much more relevant because we would be embedding the data into a context. So the next step is that when you are doing these kind of things, you never know how are they going to end. And that was the end of that, which is the Are You Safe app that uses your GPS, connects to the data, and tells you the probabilities to be killed at every moment, which is amazing and totally useful, especially if you are in the US, which is the only place where these kind of things can happen anyway. But the next one is my favorite example. We need to come back to the Fukushima accident when there was the tsunami in the nuclear factory. And I want you to look at this. A couple of weeks later, there is a piece of news on the media saying that a company in California runs out of potassium iodide pills after finding radiation in the area. What does it mean? Is it possible that radiation travels from Japan to California? Well, I don't know, but that's not the point. The point is that people were really, really afraid of not receiving the right information. And that was the point that we wanted to address, the citizens' uncertainty. So we designed, in cooperation with the Tokyo Hackerspace, a Geiger counter to monitor radiation levels that anyone could be using in Arduino platform, which is a prototyping platform, very cost-effective and worldwide spread. And we send them some samples for free, and we put the rest just to cover our cost, because we wanted to enable people with a tool for monitoring the radiation by themselves. We received a lot of feedback from the citizens, improving the original design, and finally, without any social social action, without any public call, people spontaneously started to publish the data into PatchBay, which is now known as Scythely, which is a monitoring platform where you can upload all your sensor data. Because they were not citizens, they were activists, and they wanted to really change and to really take part of that disaster. And they really wanted to help to their neighbors that maybe were living just below them, and they didn't have the access to the appropriate tools for monitoring their radiation, but they could share. And I think this is absolutely beautiful. So following that, this is another interesting project we've been participating in, and that's an e-health sensor platform to enable startups to monitor up to 10 different biometric parameters. And I can say that right now there are 3 companies formed raising money to VCs with prototypes done with this platform. So the maker movement can really democratize the technology and the way that the total game on technology and the way that we are interacting with that. So finally, as a conclusion, why is this happening right now? And I think that's because for the first time we have makers, and those are my colleagues of Cooking Hacks, which is the brother company of Libelium. We have a lot of crowdsourcing and crowdfunded platforms, and we have 3D printers. So right now you don't need a lot of things to create a prototype, make it work, and then raise money with that. And I think that those three things are a total game changer for the next 10 years. So that's my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alicia. And next up, we have Joel Gethin-Lewis. And Joel is from Helicar & Lewis, which was founded with the aim of creating a creative business around open source. And he's going to be talking about paper prototyping, the future of the city. Please put your hands together for Joel.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. That's me on the right. That's Pete on the left. He doesn't wear glasses, but he posed for that photograph. Not quite sure why. What am I going to be talking about today? I'm going to be talking about, first of all, a little introduction to Helicar & Lewis, 5 things that we do, then talking about paper prototyping for the win, and then finally a little statement about the way I think technology evolves and the way it's likely to evolve in the future. So we've been going for 6 years now. 5 things about Helicar & Lewis. We make feedback loops that link people, places, and technology. This is a project that we did in 2012 with Louis Vuitton and the Tate Modern, which made a sculptural object in the middle of the Tate Modern that would respond to Twitter inputs, so you could send visual commands to it, but then actually making a feedback loop by getting a message back natively on TwitPic and sending that back to people so they could see the result of their interaction, almost making a limited edition artwork every time it was tweeted at. We make meta loops, we make feedback loops out of our feedback loops, so we open source absolutely everything that we do. Every single project we do, we stick up on GitHub immediately. We did that for ethical reasons initially, but we've found out that it's actually great for commerce as well. It's got its clients, collaborators, and cheerleaders from all over the world. We really believe in intersecting different bits of technology in different contexts and seeing new things that emerge from that. For instance, when you go to a gig, why is it that the light show doesn't look like the music video, which doesn't look like the merchandise, right? What if we combined all of those things together, made software that created all of those things? So really putting software at the heart of all of these innovations. Oh, my clicker's de-clicking. One of the things that's important to bear in mind, though, with all of this work is that the pace of innovation is very fast, but you have to pick 2 out of these 3 options, right? So something can be good and fast, but it's not necessarily going to be cheap, or something can be fast and cheap, and it's not necessarily going to be good. This was taught to me by a builder that we commissioned from our studio, and when we went in there for the first time, he just drew out this little diagram that was so helpful, I think we're going to put it on our business cards. This is a statement as well about kind of new media artists as well, because I come from a background in new media art, initially mathematics and computer science at Imperial, and then interaction design at the Royal College of Art, and there's a lot of work that's going on out there in the kind of new media world of these kind of future possibilities, and then they tend to get taken up by advertising agencies to advertise their brands. But wouldn't it be interesting if we could actually transition from art or statements that come from an artistic context and bring those really into the urban environment? And we think real-time is really key to that. Real-time is at the center of all of the interactions and software that we make. If something's not real-time, it's just playback, and that's just like watching a TV program or something like that. And everyone knows that TV is dead, right? This is a project that we did back in 2009 where we projection mapped a building in Auckland and allowed people to put their silhouettes up on the building in real time. It's direct interaction. It doesn't need any explanation. Everyone loves it. Grannies loves it. Kids love it. Babies love it. There's no explanation needed. There's so many times that we see interaction and technology projects that have a little plinth next to them explaining what the project is. If you need a plinth to explain what the project is, you failed as a designer. I wouldn't advise doing backflips. It's a very bad idea. But if any of you guys want to activate the exteriors of your buildings or whole environments, just grab it off our GitHub. All the software's there, and it's a lot of fun. So now getting down into what I was meant to be talking about in this talk, which is all about paper prototyping. And paper prototyping is a technique that we use internally at Helicar & Lewis to come up with our ideas and generate things, but we also use it in external groups, so we run workshops for people, businesses, cities, and groups in order to use paper prototyping to get to the core of an idea. And it allows you to ignore those awkward things like budget, ability, and experience to get to the core of the idea very, very quickly and cheaply. And it's important to remember that technology in itself is not an idea. And it also stops people thinking of themselves as creative or not. So many times we see groups where there's lots of incredible people working there, but then these people are put into silos of creative and non-creative. And paper prototyping is something that really helps break down those barriers. So this is some slides from actually a paper prototyping workshop. This is our method at Hellicar and Lewis. We find an interesting technology, approach, method, or context. We apply it to an experience of the real world, and then we get the ability or money to make it happen. But what we mainly concentrate in our workshops are the elevator pitches. So, you know, you're stuck in an elevator with Bill Gates. You've got 1 minute to pitch him an idea, and it better be good. So we only give people 1 minute to present their ideas, and we only give them 20 minutes to think about them. This is a little example brief. If we could have the sound put up on this one, that would be great. Is that going to play? Go on, Theo, you can do it. Oh, yeah, there we go. Let's go. So if you could put the sound up on that. This is a project called Auto Smiley, done by a friend of mine, Theo Watson. And what he did is he connected his camera to his keyboard, and then anytime he smiles, it automatically types a smiley into whichever text box he's typing into. So if you're typing an email or you're in a Skype conversation and you just happen to smile, then it automatically types it. But one of the lovely things about that is it's a feedback loop, because what happens when you detect that your smile has been detected? You smile, right? So it's another feedback loop in itself. So we set that as a project to people. We say, you've got 20 minutes. Where could a smile be a useful switch? Think of it as a switch. What if lots of smiles were collected at once? 20 minutes of thinking time and then a 1 minute presentation, but acting out the idea of the interaction and the concept, using bits of paper to show and illustrate all the difficult technological ideas. You know, if you need a network of satellites for your idea, do a terrible drawing of a satellite and orbit it around the presenter's head. Great, you've got a network of satellites. What's the idea? So here are some of the responses that we've got of people over the last couple of years to this Auto Smiley brief. A group of Scandinavian students came back to us and said, we'd like to make a roller coaster that goes faster the more you smile. I'm sold. You know, that's all I need to hear. There was another one from, actually in Scandinavia as well, from these Norwegian guys. They were very funny. They got up very seriously and said, hello, we would like to make a device that goes on top of your television. It detects when you are watching a comedy film. And if you smile, it will replay the scene until you're not smiling anymore. Which I thought was just a beautiful summation of kind of Scandinavian culture, but also an amazing use of technology. And then one terrifying one we got from the guys at Goldsmiths last year was they said, we want to use Google Glass to recognize what you're looking at in the real world, automatically look for logos, and if you smile at any of those logos in the real world, it automatically likes that company's page on Facebook. Ooh, there's $1 million idea. But those are the kind of ideas that people can come up with very quickly when they're not given enough time to come up with good ideas. They just have to come up with something that strikes them. I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to talk now about the way I think these technologies generally evolve, right? It's always first for war, and then it's used for money, and then it's used for love. And I think this is the way it's always been, and it always will be in the future. So technology, massive military-industrial complex that we find ourselves in, and some previous examples of how these technologies are filtered through. You know, obviously ARPANET starting off with a nuclear-resistant network in the 60s, then taken through to the internet in the 70s and 80s, and then in the 90s and early noughties, chat roulette, one of my favorite projects of the last couple of years, made by a Russian hacker with technology that could have been done 10 years previous to that, but no commercial brand would ever dare to do that. The next one is, if I can click through to it. So the National Reconnaissance Office in the US, who make all the spy satellites, making an incredible CCD in the early 70s with a resolution of 64 by 64 pixels, going through to digital cameras, and now finally with the Connect One, a camera that can detect your heart rate through just a video camera, so no invasive tools. So just to finish up with, I'm just going to leave you guys some questions about what we're going to do with 3 pieces of technology that I think are very interesting for the future of the city. Number 1, it's an obvious one, drones. So this is a video of some of the experiments done with a team of nanocopters at the GRASP lab at the University of Pennsylvania. There we go. So formation flight. Imagine a flock of these following you there, everywhere around the city. We did a paper prototyping lab with this one recently, and a guy came up with a lovely idea, which was just a pair of clouds. So a pair of drones that allow you to walk anywhere. And you can walk up the side of a building because the cloud just goes underneath your foot every time you step forward. I can't wait to see that one happen. You know, being used for musical shows and gigs and events like that. And then finally, being used for tacos in San Francisco to deliver tacos direct to your hand. That's in private beta in San Francisco at the moment. I've just got 2 more to show. The other area is all pervasive surveillance. You know, London, the most CCTV'd area in the world. But what happens when you combine drones with incredibly high-resolution cameras from companies like BAE and allow you to actually survey an entire city at once? So this is a system from BAE that allows you to do that. So it can track up to, I'm not sure how many square miles it is, but it was prototyped in Virginia, and they managed to track an entire city, all the inhabitants in it, without any sensor technology needed, apart from one drone flying over the top with a gigapixel camera. And what are we going to do with these technologies? Let's not use it for killing, let's use it for beautiful things. And then the final one, which we're really, really excited about, is mind imaging. So the Gallant Lab at the University of California in Berkeley has successfully showed this technology recently, where on the left here is the video being shown to someone, and on the right is the video that's reconstructed from their brain signals alone. This is being funded by the Department of Defense at the moment to use for interrogation techniques with CIA and things like that. But what happens when you can actually visualize what's going on in someone's head in real time just by monitoring their brain activity? What are teenagers going to use it for? I cannot wait. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Priya Prakash from Design for Social Change. And Design for Social Change is a social impact business that marries real-time system data with grassroots action to affect change in neighborhoods. And they're doing this through Changeify, a mobile crowd-powered platform. Priya.
Thanks, Alex. Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, it's really nice to speak after Joel because we studied in the same college, same course, and it's always interesting to see what comes out of there and where we end up. A bit about me and where I am and why we started Changeify. So Changeify, what I'm sharing today is a personal journey. And I used to design mobile operating systems before at Nokia exactly a year ago, and I met Alex. And I left because of a couple of reasons. One was I was traveling around to lots of different emerging markets like India, Brazil, Kenya. And what I noticed was people everywhere, the way they use their devices. It was not that they needed smartphones or apps. They were using it in very interesting ways, whether it was the Arab Spring or whether it was also like, in Taksim Square. And at the same time, also communities were coming together and really being resilient when there's a lot of economic issues happening down their own neighborhood. And this is down my street. I live in unsexy South London in Camberwell, near Elephant Castle. And it's very funny, you go for these business trips, you go and talk about smart cities, you do a lot of cool tech stuff, and you come down your own street, and you think, what is this? I'm walking past this every day, and I can't seem to do anything about it. And typically as designers, again, we always get into this problem-solving mode. So what can I, as a normal person, nothing high-tech or hi-fi, actually do about this issue down my street? And one thing led to the other. I had a bike accident as well, again, down my street. And I wanted to really see what is it that people, ordinary people, with not many means, it's not that we all have tons of money and funding from TSB and stuff, what can an ordinary person do in order to change their neighborhood? So I took this challenge of actually using my neighborhood as a petri dish, as a platform, as a lab, to really come and do something. And you see things like this as well on the streets in London. Wonga, for example, one of the fastest growing startups. They have some amazing algorithms to create a real-time APR on the interest rate. It'd be interesting to, again, think about if you use that intelligence to actually solve some of the social issues that you see in the streets, instead of having yet another payday loan or betting shop. It'd be interesting how we could tap that intelligence for something better. So this is a story. As a designer, I like to tell stories through scenarios. So this is a story of John, just like you and me. I'm a cyclist in London. There's quite a few of us who cycle. And he's, it's all very mundane, boring problems, nothing sexy again. He's sick about the dog litter issue on the street. And at the same time, he's sick of having his bike stolen, like I had mine stolen in Shoreditch. He comes across Changeify, across a mom-and-pop shop one day, and he basically just curious, takes a photo, and he directly takes it to the service. You don't need an app to install. And luckily, there's a dog doing its business. He takes a photo of that, and he says, we should do something about this. And somebody else then sends another message through the system saying, we actually tried something down our street. We put these stencils. How about giving that a shot? So it's not about just reporting something that you feel about. It's also seeing what other people did down their own street to solve a problem. He goes on further down, takes a photo of the actual bike parking issue, And what happens is when he does that, it automatically gets shared across through social media, where his neighbor Tejal sees it and likes it. And this kind of spreads like wildfire across the neighborhood, obviously using things like social media. Meanwhile, on the other side, and this is something which I'm very interested personally, is how do you create sustainable business models? On the other side, you have a local business owner, and this is Evergul. He's actually in Camberwell. And then you have Sally, who's the marketing manager from Starbucks. Both of them have a similar issue as a business. Sally has got this problem of figuring out how to get back the consumer trust that a brand like Starbucks has lost at the grassroots level. And she needs to figure out how to increase footfall to those shops, to those places where Starbucks is. Evergul is a new business owner, small coffee shop guy. He wants to be known with the community, supporting community projects. So both these guys basically look at the feed and say, okay, John's project of the bicycle stand is getting traction. Instead of putting the same money in useless Google AdWord advertising or Facebook ads, which cost around £8 a day for a small business, they decided to put that same backing onto John's project. When this happens, something interesting goes on. In the local community, other people who don't have money, but they have resources and time. We all have skills. All of us might not be really like, putting money on Kickstarter every day, but we might have some skill which you want to contribute towards. Those people come together, they give their resources. So Tim here gives his workshop to fabricate these bicycle stands. Some people as designers come and give their own skills as well. And what happens is when people do the work, they actually earn points. And there's a really interesting startup out there, I forgot their name, who's doing a loyalty scheme, which is quite interesting. But loyalty, and imagine about neighborhood loyalty. It'll be interesting where you can get people to support their neighborhoods and actually earn points where you support local businesses. So when John earns the points and John and the team who's helping John to make this bicycle stand earn points, when time passes, John can go and use those points. And I know it sounds like horrible Starbucks, but it can be any other local participating shop as well. And basically invest these points, and then shops get back the footfall that they're trying to get on the high street. And we know the problem about the high streets already. So what we're really trying to do here is create a system, a sustainable system where people can spot and share ideas, come together, crowdsource, crowdsolve them, get backed by local businesses and brands which try to become solutions. They do the work, they earn the credit, and the brands and the local businesses get the PR and the impact analysis. So let's step back. What does this mean for smart cities? And going back to my previous experience about how, mobile operating systems work, it's really interesting if you look at the city as a set of layers, and we've seen that through the IBM Smart City system as well, where you end up having your pipes, your interactions, and your flows on top. And, the whole global smart city is a huge business. Let's not pretend that this is just another technological thing. We all know that, in a recession time, these kind of things are extremely huge opportunities. But at the same time, what's becoming a real issue is, if you look at the problem around smart meters, citizens want to find another way of actually having a say in some of these top-down solutions. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to create other spots in the public space. We're looking at bus stops where people can vote. Right now, we're crowdsourcing the neighborhood plan for Elephant and Castle, along with the Guardian Data Unit. And it's very interesting trying to crowdsource a neighborhood plan for something which has been quite a hot potato in regeneration in London, like Elephant Castle. We're creating these systems which works with just normal phones. You don't need to have a smartphone app. You can just use text itself. Also, what we're doing is, one of my big inspirations has always been, instead of trying to come up with new business models, look at the past. So the Great Wall of China was the first the crowd-powered lottery-funded building. And it's really interesting that actually the Emperor of China came up with a system of lottery. And a lot of our buildings around here are lottery-funded. So we can think about applying some of those principles back on trying to solve some of our local issues. So right now we're putting a neighborhood shop in Elephant Castle down London Road, where people can drop in and vote and actually give their ideas for the neighborhood plan as well. And councils, like Suffolk Council, is going to be getting the data as well. So what we're trying to really do is, if you look at what we're figuring out as a differentiation between different platforms on crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, is really kind of creating a set of design patterns around local problems and solutions that can be used by cities and neighborhoods across the globe. This is some of the stuff we've done, and so what we're really looking at is how we can bring people, whether it's citizens, whether it's local businesses and the councils, come together to collaborate and really kind of ship change down their street. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Sam Hill from Pan Studio. Pan launched the Hello Lamppost in Bristol. It was a city-wide installation commissioned by the Watershed Art Trust for the Playable City Award. And Sam is an experienced designer and a co-founder of the design practice Pan Studio, which produces interactive objects for installations and immersive theatre and create experimental objects designed to find new ways of enriching our everyday lives. Please welcome Sam Hill.
Hello, everyone. Is this thing on? My name's Sam. I'm from Pan. We've been going a couple of years, and we design experiences for people. We do that in two ways. Either we design like an experience that you go into, and it has a beginning, middle, and end, or we find a way of augmenting our daily experiences. And what I'm going to talk about just now is kind of the second category, so like a kind of augmenting of everyday. Watershed are an arts organisation based in Bristol, and they've been working on this idea called the Playable City. So they have the Playable City Award, which is a commission. And the idea of the Playable City is it's supposed to be a counterpoint to the smart city. So it's supposed to be like a discursive way of thinking about a city that's more friendly, more human, more approachable, and the kind of the relationship, the emotional relationship we have with the infrastructure around us. And that's really interesting for us, and it kind of like, you know, resonated quite strongly with what we thought was really cool and important. And we applied for the commission award thing that they had. Our perspective of the city is it's a really interesting space because there are all these points of where you've been before. Like the city is kind of like a big diary that you can walk around, and you return to a space, and it reminds you of something else you've done there before. And we really like the idea of getting people to kind of reflect and think about, you know, the things they've done before and their memories, and to share those memories and ideas. And we noticed when we go out walking around that all over the city there are these objects, street furniture, which have maintenance codes on them, or reference codes used by councils or other systems and bodies, just so people know what they're talking about. And you get that on, you know, bridges, buses, bus stops, telegraph poles, phone booths, bollards, drains, all kinds of things. And we thought that's kind of like a really nice, tangible reference system. And we've got this idea of wanting people to reflect on spaces. How can we put those together into an idea? And so this is what we've done. The idea is you send an SMS message using the reference code to a number, and you reference that object, and you get a response back from that object. What's happened then? Okay, so what continues to happen in this video is these people share an interaction that's facilitated by the object and the code. Did I do that? No. Okay. And we decided SMS would be, so what happens is the objects are talkative, and they have a kind of a personality and tone and voice, and they ask questions, and then they share what someone else has said when you give your response. And we went for SMS as a system to do that because we thought it'd be really nice to have something that's very democratic and open and that everyone can use. So we used a system called Twilio to manage that. So you send a message, and it gets handled by a server, and it sends you a reply. The conversation mechanic was something that we put lots of effort into trying to refine and work out to make sure it was as pleasurable as possible. So there's some kind of like examples. That's basically the course of 3 text messages going through there, and we tried lots of different testing. And we had some really great play testers, and we identified 2 kind of personalities or 2 kind of player behaviors. The first was someone that wanted to talk to every single object in the city. So they wanted to talk to every single post box and bus stop. So what we did is we built in a uniqueness for each category. So if you talk to a post box, it'll ask you questions about correspondence with your friends. If you talk to a bus stop, it'll ask you questions about travel. If you talk to a bridge, it'll ask you questions about river life and boats and that kind of thing. we found that was quite rewarding to people. The other kind of player behavior was wanting to kind of like own and have a relationship with a particular object, maybe a lamppost outside their house. They would talk to the same thing over and over again. So we built in an intimacy factor. So the more you talk to a thing, the more friendly it gets until like you say hello, and it kind of goes, my good friend, great to see you again. And then the questions that it asks also become more intimate. So they start off as like asking about what's happening in the environment around you, and then it's slowly what's your opinion on things, or what's your memories, what's your opinion, that kind of thing. And this is kind of what a conversation looks like. So you can see stuff like, it says, good morning, what a nice warm day. So, you know, the system knows what time of day it is and knows what the weather's like and that kind of thing. And these are all just little components that are all put together in different ways. We developed this kind of cold reading ability where you try and you figure out ways of saying stuff and it makes sense 98%, 99% of the time. Because this is actually a very dumb system. I mean, it was always designed to be a dumb system. And people don't care. Like, so long as people get the right kind of response, then they think it's, you know, as long as they're having fun, then it's great. So people would ask the questions to the system, and if they didn't get a response, they'd be like, oh, that's annoying. But if they send a question to the thing, and we kind of go, look, we'll ask the questions if you don't mind, and they kind of go, oh, okay, that's fine. Or if they like, you know, try to swear at the system, we'll say, look, can you mind your language, all right? So, and people found that quite rewarding. What we'd done is we created a completely invisible system that sat over the top of the city, which no one was aware about. And so Watershed were really helpful in finding ways to get this out to people and talk about it. So we had these, we call them gateway objects. There were several things all around the city, including the big, this is in Bristol, like the big cranes and everything had banners on them. And so they would introduce you to the mechanic and the form play, and then say, and go talk to other things as well. And here's some metrics. So we got 25, this ran over the course of 8 weeks in the summer, and we got 25,000 messages off people, which is great, like 25,000 volunteered pieces of information from about just under 4,000 people, and they woke up and activated like just under 1,200 objects were like brought up into the system. And you can see the most popular thing by quite a long shot was the anonymous lampposts, but also post boxes are very easy to talk to, very approachable, big, nice reference codes on them. And I don't know if anyone was in Bristol over the summer, but Wallace and Gromit, there was some giant Gromit statues about that big. And there were about 50 of them over the city, and people would talk to them. And of course, they get a reply from them because of the way we built the system. So we ended up in this awkward situation where we were giving someone's mute IP a voice, and that was a bit weird. Here are some kind of phrases that we got from people. So we got some really nice messages back from people, some really like some stuff quite poetic, some stuff quite sweet, and it was quite nice. Instead, if you go on the website hellolamppost.co.uk, you'll see the what people have said and the way that people have replied to the questions. And finally, there's more. I'll go into more detail on the process and behind the scenes if it's of interest to anyone on our website. And if you've got any questions afterwards, then just talk to me on Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've had 4 fantastic presentations, and we've got just about 10 minutes to go in this session. So if I can welcome all of our panelists back up to the stage, we'll break for some questions. I'm really keen to get you, the audience, involved as much as possible in, and I'm sure you've got a lot of questions to ask. Perhaps if I can just first kick off with the first question. When I was thinking about this session, it occurred to me about a year ago, it's this time in the year editorially when most journalists start thinking about what the next buzzwords are going to be and the biggest trends. And I remember this time last year, Internet of Things was widely tipped to be the biggest thing of the year. Now, I think from what we've seen here, it's definitely coming of age. But is it really at the point where we're going to see it in the general consumer's conscious? I think maybe, Alicia, could you give us your thoughts?
I can say that we've been in the Internet of Things industry for the past 7 years. And right now we are seeing a change in the language. So 3 years ago, we were seeing companies coming to us and talking about pilots and demos, and now they are talking about projects. And the fact that for the first time we are seeing consumer IoT, I think that we are in the right direction. I wouldn't be so optimistic of saying, like Gartner said yesterday, that 2014 is going to be the IoT year, but definitely we are in the right direction.
Okay. Does anyone else have a?
I think Apple and iBeacon is going to be the thing that will break it through. I think they've got it in a couple of stores in the States. They seem to have made a really good solution, and I think that's going to those spreading out. And as Apple has shown previously, once it does something, it does it right. And I think they've done it right in this case.
So you're saying we're waiting for the big industry players to jump in?
Yeah, I think that's happening.
Do you agree, Priya?
It's interesting because I see many low-tech solutions which people hack together as well to get things to start talking to each other, especially, again, in emerging markets where you don't have that. And I think that, for me, again, going back to the maker part that Alicia was talking about before, gets very interesting. When the stuff we've done with Twilio, which is quite off the shelf, I think things which are actually affordable and accessible to many people will probably create the adoption. And obviously, from the business model perspective, having Apple and Google to drive that kind of demand and desirability, absolutely spot on.
Okay, brilliant. I think I'm keen to get some questions from the audience. We've got a mic over there. Does anyone have any questions for our panel at the moment? Yes, at the back there. If you could just introduce yourself on the mic, that'd be fantastic. Sit with you.
My name's Ross Atkin. I'm a researcher at the Royal College of Art. And the question's for, is it Priya?
Yeah.
Cool. I was wondering what you thought the impact of Changeify and ideas like Changeify would be on the idea of the local authority, municipal government, as the sort of guardian of the territory that the city is built on. Mm-hmm. And I guess their monopoly on that.
Excellent question. I think we're still quite early in our journey with this relationship with the local authorities. Like I said, we are crowdsourcing the neighborhood plan for Elephant and Castle. And I think things like the Localism Act, which I don't know how many of you are familiar with the details. I myself am learning about this. But there are some things now in the Citizens Toolkit to actually challenge like what developers come up with and co-create along with them. Having said that, there is a huge cultural shift that still needs to take place. I think a lot of right projects, pilots, many councils are getting involved in trying to get ideas from citizens. I don't think there's a lack of ideas. I think what is really required is seeing the implementation through and also making them sustainable. So, for example, if there's a fund from the Community Council in Suffolk, which lasts for one annual budget year, the same project cannot run the next year because the funding is over. And I think this is actually the real problem, is how do you create projects which are sustainable and have somebody is interested to buy something or sell something, so you can create that value from the pilot to much longer. So I think that's where I believe local authorities could play an active role, is trying to make systems which are sustainable by providing probably the seed funding, but then creating the right conditions for rollout in other places. I don't know if I answered your question, though.
If I can just follow up on that as well, I was very curious in many of your presentations, how are local authorities really reacting to this? Are they welcoming these kind of innovations?
Well, in the case of Hello Lamppost, the town hall was one of the things that people could talk to. So obviously that had people use that as a platform for kind of like political discourse, which is very interesting. So people were using it to argue about the closing of the local library and that kind of thing. The problem is, I suppose, is there was no one necessarily listening other than us, and we don't have any authority. I think a lot of the time people assumed if they were talking to a postbox, they were talking to Royal Mail, but perhaps as a way of building those things in a more sincere way.
How do you talk about ownership as well? Is it something that, I guess the question in my mind I'm thinking is, a lot of politicians or a councillor, do they not feel threatened by this kind of innovation? Your side?
Of course they can feel, but I think that right now they don't realize yet of that. I think that for the moment they are too busy talking about smart cities as a marketing, as a piece of marketing, and they are not really getting it. But the thing is that we've seen other initiatives like there was a big open data boom some years ago, and many city councils started to publish the data sets. And the thing is that now you can make differences between those city councils that are not just publishing the data, but trying to dynamize and to promote the use of that, like New York City with the New York City Big Apps initiative, and other ones that are just publishing to say, okay, I'm a transparent city council because I'm publishing all my data set. Check. That's all. So,
Okay.
I was just going to add to the point because I had now, having done this Petri dish part of my neighborhood, I actually run the local business network to understand how to work with councillors because I really like understanding the system. And I think we actually, again, a lot of councillors want to do good, but they probably technologically are not yet there. So people like, what Alicia is doing, Joel and Sam's doing is really trying to help them not feel scared about technology by doing small projects where they feel that they are, they're also winning. They're not just being like the aging dad in the room figuring out what the new smartphone app is. So I think we have a responsibility on our side as well to bring them together with us.
I think that's where things like paper prototyping and workshopping
Absolutely.
can be really, really helpful, because then you get the buy-in from the councillors and the community and everyone who's involved, because they came up with the idea. It wasn't just someone coming in top down with this kind of branded smart cities initiative, which sometimes makes me feel suspicious in my heart of hearts that it's just a way of justifying massive new income and marketing techniques for companies that were destroyed by the commodification of PC hardware and things like that. But that's for another day. But I think there's a genuine thing there that it's really about enabling the communities, because they know, the local councillors know, the people who are on the streets, everyone knows what the problems are. It's just getting people together into those ways that can make it. And it's totally, I think that was a brilliant point of making things that are sustainable. It's that classic give a man a fish versus a fishing rod argument.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We are just down to our last minute. I thought it'd be perhaps very interesting as we're heading towards the end of this year, if I could maybe start at this end of the panel very quickly. What is your buzzword for next year?
I'm going to say crowd power.
Okay.
Oh, God, I don't know. I don't know. Can you come back to me?
Yes.
Emotional interaction. So all those things around smile detection and things like that, and non-pervasive sensory systems.
Okay, fantastic.
More transparency to have a better and bigger democracy.
Okay. Has something come to you?
No, I don't know. More playable systems.
More playable
systems.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you very much to some fantastic panelists, and thank you very much.